SEO was one of the single biggest mistakes that Connected Investors made, because we were initially a closed social network where our content wasn't supposed to be syndicated. And then we tried to open it up. It just never clicked. So we found the best of the best, yours truly right here. And we got things a lot better. And I have high hopes for the future when it comes to SEO.
Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It's my pleasure to have Ross Hamilton with us. Ross is a successful entrepreneur known for his achievements in real estate and technology. He founded Connected Investors, a platform for real estate investors, which he later sold for an undisclosed sum, but it's in the high 8 figures. Now he focuses on using technology and finance to address affordable housing issues through nonprofits, leading a team of real estate experts with a philanthropic mission. He also happens to have been a client when he was with Connected Investors, and we helped them with SEO. So it's great to have you on the show, Ross.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and I love marketing because if you don't have marketing, nothing else works. And that's really my core competency and how I was able to do well in real estate and in tech, just having that marketing first mind. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here and share and just give all I can.
Awesome. Well, let's start with your origin story. How did you end up being a real estate mogul?
Yeah, an unfortunate situation. To answer it very, very quickly, real estate is one of the best options for people with limited options because you can make millions of dollars. You don't need a degree. You just need hustle. And I was a former semi-pro BMX rider who rode with Dave Mira every day. He moved to my town. He's like the Michael Jordan of BMX. He was a buddy of mine. And I got really good really fast because of my drive and because of the people that I surrounded myself with. But I learned a lot in BMX. And even though I got hurt and ultimately had to step out, I started to understand risk. And risk just became part of every single day. I would ride every day for at least 8 hours, right? So every time I hit a jump, there was always a little bit of risk there. And I think that really helped with my entrepreneurial journey because I wasn't scared to take a few falls. And ultimately, my big fall in BMX, which I'm being honest, I was never going to be, one of the top 5, led me to real estate and into tech, where I was, in the top 5 in the real estate side of things. So, yeah, that's a short answer or a long answer to your question there.
Well, your story reminds me of Dre Redfern. Do you know Dre?
I don't.
Well, he's a very successful marketer, and he had an unfortunate accident as a cyclist, racer, professional. And yeah, he was kind of on top of the world at the time. And everything fell apart. And it was a blessing in disguise, but certainly didn't feel like it at the time. But he shared his story on this podcast. We talked about marketing and so forth, but he went into his origin story first.
I'm going to listen to that for sure.
Yeah, it's really it's inspiring. He's inspiring. I know him through Genius Network, Joe Polish's mastermind.
Masterminds have been a big part of my upbringing as well. In BMX, you had that little group of people that you rode with, and I didn't realize it, but it was my mastermind. The higher caliber person in your mastermind, the faster you seem to excel. I was doing okay. Then all of a sudden I was riding with Dave Mira every day, and the impossible became possible. I remember this one time he had just built his skate park, and he's like, I'm going to do a backflip and touch my tire on the ceiling. And I'm like 16 years old. I'm like, no way. By the end of the day, the ceiling was filled with tire prints. I would have thought hitting your tire to the ceiling would stop your rotation, but he did it. So just being around those people that are able to do those things where you have a limited belief on and just keep breaking through that. I think at a young age, just watching that happen over and over again just helped me be optimistic and become one of those people that could, touch your tire to the ceiling.
Wow. How did you meet him?
He moved to Wilmington, North Carolina from New York, and there was only a small ragtag group of BMXers. So we heard he was coming this way, and we just basically hounded him. And he said, great. why don't you help me build the skate park, pick up that drill? And it was right before he got really popular. He was just kind of doing the rags to riches thing himself. He had suffered a huge injury at a young age and was told he'd never be able to ride his bike again. So he pushed through that as well. So we just met him, and then I provided value to him, just started working for him for free, hanging out with him. And before you know it, we were buddies.
That's cool. Do you keep in touch with him?
God bless his soul. He has passed.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it was pretty tragic. Well, it didn't have anything to do with BMX, but yeah, that was that was a tough day.
Was that recent or years?
It was maybe 5-6 years ago. He took a lot of hits to the head and had some of the same injuries that football players would get. I forget the exact name of it, but it caused a lot of issues in his in his life, and it was just a downward spiral. I mean, he was at the top of his game. He was a rally racer. He did really good in rally. He did really good in boxing. So he took his habits into other disciplines and was at the top of his game, which was really cool to be around an athlete like that for such a long time at a very young age.
It reminds me what you're saying about what happens to football players happened to him with the brain injury. There's a really fascinating study that Dr. Daniel Amen did on football players, on professional football players. He was a guest on my other podcast, and Get Yourself Optimized. I'll have to find the link to that study, because he would do these imaging scans on football players, and they'd be getting dementia and depression, memory loss, all that stuff from the head trauma.
That's exactly what Dave suffered through.
Yeah, that's tough. So how we met was through Dustin Matthews, who is also a past guest on this podcast, coincidentally. Amazing human and a brilliant marketer. Episode 96 was that episode. I just find that there are no coincidences. So do you keep in touch with Dustin?
I almost jumped in and interrupted you because Dustin actually moved right down the street from me. So Dustin and I met.
He's in the other room right now.
He's in the other room, yeah. Dustin and I met when I was maybe 20-ish, between 20 to 23. And we just stayed in touch over the years. He wound up working for Connected Investors for a little while. And then I moved to Asheville, North Carolina. And through, I don't know, he didn't move here because of me, but he wound up moving here as well. So yeah, we stay in touch. He's a buddy and a mentor of mine in the marketing world. So yeah, it's great having him around the corner. When you move someone brand new and you're 40, it's tough to make friends, right? I was at the coffee shop the other day and I saw this really cool van with a bunch of bikes on the back. And I sparked up a conversation with the gentleman because I ride bikes, mountain bikes now. And I got his phone number and I came home and I told my wife, I'm like, I got a guy's number. And she's like, is he sweet? I'm like, he seems really nice. She's like, congratulations, honey. Are you going to call him? I'm like, should I wait? Should I text him now? So it's, moving out here, it's starting over again, building a, good group of friends that share similar habits outside of business, which is really challenging for me because my whole life, if it wasn't about business, I didn't have time for it. It had to be brief, right? So now that I've kind of completed the full circle, it's about, diving back into hobbies and helping other people and doing all that. And that's why I'm doing these shows, just to help out any way I can.
Yeah. So you had a successful exit, and did you contemplate retiring or just sitting on a yacht somewhere? What were you thinking when you decided you were going to sell your company?
Yeah. So when I sold at like 39, 40, right? So that's kind of a midlife point to begin with. So it was a very interesting, a lot of introspection, a lot of just learning meditation and just trying to figure out now what do I want to be now that I have unlimited capital, unlimited resources. So I didn't look at it as retirement. I looked at it as rewirement. And you don't need a huge exit to do that. But what that means to me, it's when you get to reprioritize everything. Because I had prioritized business miles ahead of everything for such a long time. some out of necessity, because when you build a big business, it can become a monster to where you have to keep feeding it, right? So I didn't buy a yacht. I didn't buy a plane. If it flies or if it floats, it's cheaper to rent it. But I did spend some time on some yachts, and I do enjoy the NetJets and Wheels Up subscription. But really, I just wanted to, I believe the full circle of an entrepreneur, I started with nothing, no education in real estate or tech, built a network of people up, sold. So now I'm coming back and I've started my nonprofit, Saving Homes, that is going to help essentially single parents save homes that they already own or help them get in homes. I got my big break in real estate. That's where I built my base foundation. At a young age, I had 50 properties. So that gave me financial freedom to start a tech company, to start other things. So I'm a really firm believer in just how important it is to have a real estate portfolio. And anyone who owns real estate is a real estate investor. So if you own a property, you're a real estate investor. If you paid full price, you're just not a very good real estate investor, right? That's the only difference to me. But what's happened recently, and you've probably seen this, is you have the haves and the have-nots, right? The haves have real estate. They own multiple real estate. And they got a nice appreciation bump. They got in before interest rates shot up. And you have the have-nots, the people that maybe they were indecisive or through life struggles, they couldn't get a property. So now the income gap just jumped so much because the properties are more expensive, interest rates are higher. It really sucks for a lot of people just starting or people that are a little down on their luck for whatever reason. So I've come back in with all my real estate knowledge, my expertise, my ability to market, and marketing is a big part of what I'm doing, and branding. And we're kind of rehabbing affordable housing and helping individuals get into homes, because real estate's great. You got to live somewhere anyway. You go to sleep for 20 years, you wake up and you have hundreds of thousands of dollars that you can pass down to other generations or leverage in all these different ways. So real estate's a really important part of your portfolio. If you're listening to this and you haven't invested in real estate, it's not too late. I don't want that to be the takeaway here. It's just right now you have to make something happen. And if you can figure out how to buy real estate at discounts, then you can kind of go back in time, right? And get those properties. So you can roll up your sleeves a little bit and you can make it happen. So that's what I believe the full circle of an entrepreneur should be. Make a lot of money, come back, help a lot of people. Yeah. So I kind of didn't relax for very long, whatever relaxing means, but my outlook on life is completely different. So I have a much more calm vibe and tone about me than I used to when I had a big monster I had to keep feeding.
Mm-hmm. And how many properties do you have now? You had 50 back in the day. Do you still have a portfolio?
I've been through that portfolio a few times, but I have just shy of 200.
Wow.
That are kind of coming and going one way or another. That's plenty. And I'm not aggressively growing that, but I do find myself buying at least a property or two a month, every month, one way or another. I mean, what's good is once you have a lot of capital, to me, real estate's just a bank account. It's like I can put my money in the bank or I can just hold it in this property. So there's not much of a difference in my head of owning real estate or having that money in a bank account.
Yeah, except the bank is kind of sketchy.
Yeah, exactly. I have more control. But even when I didn't have money, I didn't let that stop me. Because if you can find a good deal, money's never a problem. And I would do creative partnership deals where I'd find the deal, I'd do everything. Someone would come in with the money. We'd be partners of whatever percentage I can get them to agree on, depending on how passive that they want to be. So everyone wants their money in real estate. And if you can find those deals and just connect them with people, it works out. And that's why I started Connected Investors, because the more connected I was, the more successful I was. And that site is still up. Even though I'm gone, it's flourishing. The company that bought us is a Fortune 100 company, First American. They do 1 out of every 3 real estate closing. They're investing millions and millions and millions into the platform now. So if you haven't used Connected Investors, definitely try it out.
Yeah. And what are some of the ways that you can get a good deal? Because you said if you're paying full price for a property, you're not a very good investor. So what are the tactics or the strategies then?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's different types of real estate investors and different thought processes. Some people believe in buying with appreciation in mind. They'll spend a lot of time looking at different markets, and that can be a good strategy, but it's a little bit of a gamble, right? Even if Tesla's moving into the town, so you buy all this land, something can happen, right? So
Yeah, that was what I was just thinking as you were talking about it. It's like the word that came to my mind was speculating, and you used the word gambling. Yep.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you'll hear all the success stories of people that saw good luck like that. But to me, I like to buy below market value right now because I know my profit's baked in when I buy, and there's going to be appreciation. So I try to get the best of both worlds. But really, there's a lot of ways to find individuals that need to sell properties quickly without the hassle of listing. And that's really what the Connected Investor software did. It helped you locate people that maybe they lived out of town and they inherited a property and they have a tax lien on it, right? Ding, 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 ding. Those are people that are worth reaching out to. And the Connected Investor software had their phone number. So you can just reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking to buy a property in the area. Any interest of selling? And trust me, you get a lot of, how'd you get my number? What are you doing calling me? Or I sold that property last week, right? But you only need like one person a year to say yes, right? But just if you're doing it passively, if you're like, I'm just going to buy one investment property a year, you can easily do that and find those properties. Now, if you're just getting started, if you're very wealthy, yeah, land banking is great. Just buying land. It's called banking because you're just kind of parking the money there. There's less hassle. You have to know what you're doing when you're buying, so you're not buying like wetlands, but with the right reports and making sure there's no endangered species on the land, depending on where you might live. Land banking is great for someone who has a lot of money and they just want to park it in real estate. They don't want the hassle. But if you're actively building, you need to make sure that you can cash flow off those properties. So you're looking for properties that can be rented, which rentals are just going through the roof. Airbnbs, short-term rentals are really good, but it's getting a little saturated. It's not as rose-colored as it used to be. But it's a great strategy. I wish there were short-term rentals when I first started. So anyway, finding someone who needs to sell a property or in a creative way is what I did, and then what Connected Investors in the software did. And it's actually the same thing that my charity is doing. We're coming back and helping people that are down on their luck and they want to stay in their house. And we'll be building homes as well. A lot of different fun things there. But yeah, you have to find someone who needs to sell, houses in need of repair, stuff you probably can kind of understand, but just tactically, just put a plan together. Don't give yourself a year to get your first house. Give yourself 3 months to have someone say yes. And don't worry about all the other blank. Where am I going to get the money? What am I going to do this? What do I say? I used to do triathlons and I did an Ironman. And when I was training, you do this 2.5 mile swim. You get out of the swim, you're wet. You have to put on your bike clothes. It's 112 mile-ish, maybe 110-mile bike. Then you get off and you have the marathon, right? The first two you can usually make it through, but the marathon, that's the tough one. And when you're running that marathon, when I was running that marathon, I didn't think, man, I got another 24 miles to go. I would just look at the next telephone pole and just say, Ross, can you get to that telephone pole? I'd say yes. Get to the next. Can you get to the next telephone pole? So a lot of times if you think about real estate, it could be this big, overwhelming thing, but it's really one of the simplest industries out there. It's each step individually is easy, and there's more resources than ever to get through them. Step one might be saying, yes, I'm going to buy a house investment property this year. Okay. Step two is to start making offers. Don't worry about getting your LLC set up. Don't worry about don't worry about having a nice office and driving to Office Max to get a trash can. Don't put all of those things in your way. Just start making offers to people that might want to sell. And you don't even need to make an offer. Are you interested in selling? Because you're going for properties that aren't listed. And I should have mentioned that. So if they're interested in selling, then you can be like, oh, great. I'm going to get an offer together. Just give me a day or two, and then you can figure out all those other steps. But
Then you get the trash can.
yeah, I mean, I've talked to people. I'm like, what are you doing today? They're like, I'm going to Office Max. I got to get some like tape and a trash can. I'm like, no, that's going to take you 3 hours. You can make, 30 offers in 3 hours. Have your office be as messy as possible until you get your first deal, your first verbal yes. So you're just trying to get that verbal yes. And there's nothing binding about a verbal yes. You can back out. Then once you have that verbal yes, you can start having fun doing all the homework and filling in all the blanks. So there's a lot of courses on real estate investing out there. I actually give one away now just to help people get started.
Oh, I'll include it in the show notes for this episode.
Yeah, in the show notes, I'll give you I'm not allowed to sell real estate information anymore because of selling my company, but I can give it away. So some of the stuff I used to sell, I just give away, and just check the show notes out and grab that course if you're interested.
That's awesome.
But real estate is the marketing game, though. Let me just make sure, if you're a good marketer, you will see fast success in getting started in real estate.
Right, because you have to buy low and sell high. And if you're going to sell high, that means you have to do marketing and find a hungry audience to sell your cheeseburgers to.
Yeah, well, the good thing is the selling has never been easier. Back in the day, we used to have to teach people how to build a buyer's list and build, different lists of people. But now, I mean, even when I get properties, I can put it on Facebook Marketplace, connected investors, or if I own the property, the MLS, and it's just, gone in less than a month. Real estate's good because it's more liquid than ever, but that means it's harder to find the deals. But most people just look on the MLS, and the MLS stands for My Listing Sucks. if you're a real estate investor.
Yeah, funny, right? So the MLS is the last place you want to look for deals because there aren't any.
Yeah, you'd have to bank off appreciation, or they're being mined right now by hedge funds and stuff. So you have to go off market pre-MLS properties.
Yeah, and how many phone calls? I know this isn't a real estate episode, but I'm curious, how many phone calls do you need to make in order to get a yes? Is it hundreds? Is it thousands? Is it just maybe 50?
The thing is, we have case studies on every different number. One individual logged into Connected Investors, got our deal finding software, and he cashed a check within 72 hours because he got it. He was like his second phone call, someone that wanted to sell 10 properties. So he made an offer the next day, sold it to someone from Connected Investors that sold the contract the next day. And he's like our poster boy, right? Because he did it faster than ever.
So what you're saying is he didn't even buy the property himself. He just acquired the customer, the person selling the house or properties, without even doing the deal of closing on the properties. He just gave that for a fee to someone else on Connected Investors.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
He got the yes, he got the contract, he sold the contract. Because now the person he sold the contract to had the ability to purchase that house at a discounted property. That's called micro flipping or wholesaling. And it happens all day, every day. And that's where a lot of people start. And people that are good marketers start there as well, because they don't have to deal with any of the fixing, with any of the financing. They just do a few of those. But what happens is after you do one or two, you're like, man, I want to keep some of those properties.
Yeah, I'm missing out.
The idea is passive income, to where you can have money coming in forever. And that's the portfolio I have right now. I'll have money coming in off those forever. And it's just the rents keep going up, the properties keep getting more valuable. So you wholesale so you could start holding, right? But the idea is to build up that passive income while you're doing anything else. And real estate is something you can do while you're running another business. People have every excuse in the world on why they don't do it. And that's okay, because I've had those excuses too. But you just want to make sure that you have an actual plan to retire. Because my thought process is, I'm going to try all this crazy stuff, but worst case scenario, I can fall back on my real estate. And by 60 years old, I'll have, you know, 82 paid off houses and I'll be fine. Now I got lucky because I did that and I had a huge tech exit and my tech company was making me, multiple seven figures. But the real estate was always kind of like the fallback for real life. A lot of you guys probably have good jobs. And to me, a job is very risky because it's not up to you if you have a job next year. Look at what's happening with all the actors striking right now. Have you seen that?
Nope.
They don't have basically AI is coming in. And if an extra comes in and is in the background once, they sign a piece of paper. And now that movie company can use them in the background of any movie. So they've just eliminated extras and even small speaking roles. So the whole acting industry is in an uproar right now because they are about to be replaced by artificial intelligence. And I wish them the best of luck, but I don't think they have a chance in hell long term. Maybe they can hold it for another handful of years, but that's the type of stuff that's happening right now. So having a plan B is not even a luxury anymore, in my opinion.
And when did you start Connected Investors?
2005, I bought the domain name. 2006, I launched the worst site ever with a typo across the front because it said, instead of Connected Investors, it said Connected Inventors, which spell check didn't catch it because it was technically right. And I think it was a good idea. So if anyone wants to launch Connected Inventors, the idea is still open. But no, I launched a site with no technical ability or background. Made a lot of mistakes along the way, but just kind of kept pushing. SEO was one of the single biggest mistakes that Connected Investors made because we were initially a closed social network where our content wasn't supposed to be syndicated. And then we tried to open it up. It just never clicked. So we found the best of the best. Yours truly right here. And we got things a lot better. And I have high hopes for the future when it comes to SEO.
Yeah. So how did that come about that you ended up hiring me and my team to help with SEO? And yeah, what was your experience?
We did a lot of diligence on a lot of different companies, and I had worked with different individuals in the space. And a lot of people were kind of telling me what I wanted to hear, just giving me shortcuts on SEO, little bumps. And every single one of those shortcuts wound up adding a year to our real plan. And, Mr. Spencer here told me like it was. And he also had a lot of experience in getting results for similar companies. So I was really excited to work with him. And we definitely turned things around. And then we made more mistakes. Nothing to do with you, our tech team, just not having that SEO, not having an SEO minded person that was also a developer on staff. And take in mind, our site had 100 million pages. And I was about to say, it was not just a little WordPress site, but those little WordPress sites were eating us for lunch. So I'm not degrading the value of those. We had just not had an SEO plan in place from the get-go. And untangling and rebuilding, it takes quite an expert and is harder than just building it right the first time. Again, it was a complete afterthought.
Yeah. Well, the old expression, the old adage, less is more, and having 100 million pages when there's thin content and duplicate content and a lot of cannibalization and so forth, the name of the game there is content pruning. So yeah, that was a lot of work. Now, how did you sell internally SEO? Because you weren't just the person calling the shots, right? Because you had First American owning the company now.
Yeah. I had never worked for a real company before. So anyone who works for a company and you have like Workday and HR, I had never experienced the pain of that before. I started out in BMX, got into real estate, started my own company. So I never had to ask for permission. I just had to get results. And and grind, right? Working many nights until it was the next day. When I sold the First American, I had a few years where I had to help guide the ship, and I never had to deal with budgets before. So to answer the question, it's kind of I'm not the best person to answer the question because I was absolutely horrible at working through the chain of command in a publicly traded company with multiple layers. Around budget time, I just pushed so hard on how important SEO was. I was like, this is our biggest opportunity, because really when I left the company, I knew that it was going to be tough for them to continue to market in the way they had before. Because I was, I don't compare myself with this gentleman, but I was the Elon Musk of my little company, right? I came up with the product. I worked with tech. I worked with marketing. I was the voice. So I was able to get things done, and I was very good at marketing and paid ads.
Yeah. You were the face of the company.
Yeah, exactly. So even though I wasn't on the main website, I tried not to be the face. But anyway, I was. And internally and externally, external face is one thing, but also internally, I was making all the decisions on the products. So I figured if we can just get SEO going right, it could help them balance like a loss of some traffic they may see or may not see once I kind of stepped away. So it was just me trying to hedge the bet and leave the company in the best situation I could. I look at SEO kind of as, if you're going into war, it's like the Navy. Once you have good SEO, it's just right offshore. It's refueling everyone. It's just firing shots in. You have your ads, you have your ground troops, you have your air force, like all these different tactical things. But SEO just keeps you refueled and keeps you going when times are hard. And when you're making those shifts in your business, if you have the traffic coming in from SEO, that's fantastic. It's a trust factor. It's a brand play. If you're showing up and people are Googling your keywords, you are that keyword. So that's why when I went to build my next company, my charity, we have been all SEO first to make sure we're launching it correctly from day negative 400. From a year before we launched, we're talking SEO. We're getting that part in place because I understand how hard it is to unwind when you do it incorrectly.
Yeah, it's like building a house and having to wire it later with electrical and tear out drywall to clean. It's just a horrible mess to clean up.
Yeah, and then you have a light switch in one room that's for another room, and people are like, "This is all wrong." You're like, "I know, I messed up."
Well, SEO is pattern recognition and pattern utilization. So if you can spot the patterns before you lay all the foundation and everything, you're going to be in so much better shape.
Yeah.
And that's one of your strong suits is your pattern recognition. We were talking about this before recording, like how you use your journals to see what you do this year, this day, or this month compared to previous years. You're tracking this and you're seeing the improvement and you're seeing the patterns, and then you're making course adjustments because of it. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. We can get deep on a philosophy, standpoint here, but you are your patterns. You are your habits. You are orbiting around certain things. Gravity has got you pulled in certain directions. And when you start to reflect daily and you can read back, you can see the things that you're orbiting around. And sometimes you just have to break free. You're orbiting around your habits. That's kind of the gravity. When I did the Ironman, there was this point to where my business had kind of plateaued and it was doing fine, but I was just, I couldn't get to the next level. So I said, I just want to do something that is going to change every day of my life. I just wanted to kind of put a little wobble in the wheel to get on a different trajectory. And I signed up for the Ironman triathlon. I couldn't swim, right? I could bike and I could kind of run, but I couldn't swim. So I had to get a swim coach. I couldn't swim like a swimmer. I can get from one side of the pool to the other, but that's a lot different than understanding how to breathe and actually swim correctly. So Yeah. But what that did though is it made every single day of my life different. It broke me from some habits. And through that, I actually met a gentleman who was the CEO and founder of a company called Lending Tree. And we became buddies through the pain of training for an Ironman. And he had revolutionized how you shop for a home loan back in like 2000. You can press a few buttons and have multiple lenders competing. Before that, you had to go to bank to bank to bank. So we launched the same thing for the real estate investment world because he wasn't in the investment world. He only connected you with banks. Our platform connected you with non-bank private lenders that want to give you the money you need to fix and flip or buy and hold properties, right? So if you got a good deal, that's how you solve the money problem. And doing that completely changed my business. We had some of the best years of our lives. We were able to buy millions of dollars in traffic and liquidate on it very quickly. So it changed my whole life, but I changed a major part of it. And there was just something new came into my orbit. But yes, you are a pattern. It'd be cool if you can draw it out. Maybe AI will be able to do it for you one day. But that 5-year journal I have where I just write 3 sentences about my day, I grade myself on a few different things. And then when you look back over a few years, you're like, wow, I'm doing the same exact thing today that I did this day 3 years ago. And you can course correct, or you can be like, hey, this is right where I want to be.
It's funny you were sharing how you got your car repaired on the exact same or maintained on this exact same day this
3
time
years ago.
last year. Or
Yeah.
3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. 3 years ago. It's like, and I'm like the same day. It was 3 years in a row.
Oh, 3 years in a row. Like,
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like
that
it was
is bizarre.
Yeah.
There are
So
no
I'm just
coincidences. There's something to that. I don't know what the meaning is of it, but you know, the universe works in mysterious ways. But wow, that is so cool. And how did you get? How'd you come across this 5-year journal, or did you just make it up?
No. It's through Stoicism.
Okay.
That kind of ancient philosophy. Stoicism is like an entrepreneur's operating system. The obstacle is the way. There's a rabbit hole of great material online.
Yeah. Marcus Aurelius Meditations. Yep.
Listen to the meditation summary. I listen to it quite often. It will blow your mind. The last great Roman emperor had a private journal that got published, and it is just filled with all sorts of wisdom.
So you said listen to the summary. Where do you get the summary from?
Yeah, I mean, because the whole thing is like 6-7 hours. But if you just listen to that summary, if you like that, jump into the rabbit hole. If you don't, Stoicism isn't for you. But it's just a great philosophy, way of thinking, way of enjoying the struggle. And then life becomes great when you enjoy the struggle because everything is the struggle, right? That's the growth. Those are the stories you love to tell once you've made it to the other side, all the times you almost lost it all, right? But it's through Stoicism and also my wife. She had one, and then I saw it in Stoicism, and I'm like, oh, this is great. So it's quite a gift to have just 3 or 4 sentences about each day. My first sentence is I just write something I was thankful for that day. So it keeps you in the mindset of having gratitude, writing a few things you'd never remember, right? You'll never remember. You probably don't even know what you did last Tuesday, but I can at least go get a little summary of the things I did. And there's something also great about actually like writing it down with a pen and paper, kind of getting off technology. So yeah, it's a great way to reflect.
By the way, I do something a little bit similar. This is my remarkable tablet, and I put on here a daily gratitude journal. I call it my God journal. And so I write to God and I thank him not just for the obvious blessings, the revealed blessings, but the unrevealed blessings, in other words, the challenges. Because if I write down the challenges as things I'm grateful for, that helps me not only to appreciate it, but to shift my perspective and see the benefits of these things. Because sometimes for people it takes years or decades or maybe the end of their lives, and then they finally recognize like, wow, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, even though it was one of my darkest days.
Yes, that's genius. I really like that. I don't do that daily, but in the my 12-month financial and personal planner, I have this section that says if I didn't, and you fill it in with something negative, then I wouldn't have, and you fill it in with something positive, right? And then you write down a negative thing you're going through now and the positive outcome you'd like to have from that. And again, it's just, I mean, this life is crazy, right? Like no matter, you might be sitting there and be like, oh, this guy Ross, it's so great, man. We've had some of the toughest times out there. It's so to find blessings in those tough times, you've kind of cracked the code there, and that actually would kind of sum up stoicism a little bit, for sure. So there's some real nuggets there, and being successful in anything is just your habits. Like Dave Mira, he was number one here, and he took those same habits into rally racing and into boxing, and probably seen evidence of that through other people in your life. Having those good habits, reflecting, adjusting, those are the really important things. Because if not, you will just keep orbiting around the same stuff, and there you go.
Yeah, there's this expression that your habits become
Your thoughts. I think you're.
I forget the exact flow of it, but I remember the end of it, and it's like, and these ruts then become graves. So because you're writing patterns into your brain synapses, into your wiring by reinforcing them, doing them over and over and over again, and those become ruts, which then become graves.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely powerful. And in that financial planner I was talking about, I have certain questions to ask yourself. And a question to ask yourself is, why am I so successful? People always say, what's wrong with me? Right? You ever said that, oh, what's wrong with me? You're still, if you say, why am I so successful? You start thinking differently. And to be completely candid, just being on podcasts like this, people say, hey, Ross, how are you so successful in this? And there's this crazy benefit to where I get more successful because people are asking me how I was successful. It's this weird reinforcing thing, but you don't need to be on a podcast to have that happen. You can manufacture that on your own with the questions that you ask yourself. And yeah, and you've been touching on that. So I love I'm going to adopt that into my journal. I'm thanking. That's powerful.
The thing that makes the biggest difference for me, because it did at the time, the challenges make the biggest difference, but then that became a pattern, which became, so now I remember the expression, patterns become, or habits, either one, become grooves, which become ruts, which become graves, if they're bad habits, right? And so the challenges aspect of journaling was a big breakthrough, and it changed the way that I think about challenges as I'm facing them without having to write them down and reflect on them. Now, what the biggest benefit of daily journaling, my God journal, is writing down the messages that I receive. So I get constant feedback from God and my unseen support team. And I can tell things are not random. And so when stuff keeps showing up, like, for example, this just seems really silly and small, maybe to some of the more kind of materialistic folks listening, but actually probably they're not listening because they've probably been turned off by all my woo-woo stuff already on other episodes. But just this morning, my son, who's 3, he was playing in the living room. I was looking on my computer at an email, seeing who a guest was going to be on Wednesday this week, so a couple days from now. And she's based in Orlando. She was referred, functional medicine doctor, this for my other podcast, and she was referred by a client and friend who is also a past guest on Get Yourself Optimized. So I'm looking at this and I'm feeling like, intuitively, I feel like I'm supposed to also recommend she get on my wife Orion's podcast on Stellar Life, but I wasn't sure. I hadn't tuned in and got the confirmation or whatever. But within a couple minutes, I'm just kind of thinking about this and then looking at other emails. And then my son just randomly out of the blue mentions the word Orlando. He's 3. We live in Miami. We don't live in Orlando. We went to Orlando about a month ago for a week or 5 days. We were at the biohacking conference, but just out of the blue, within several minutes of me contemplating like what to do about this guest, should I have her on Orion's podcast? And then my little son's mentioning the city that she's in. So it's like those things, if you're kind of tuned in, then you can connect dots and feel like, oh, I'm getting some guidance here because you are. And so that's the breakthrough for me is I write this stuff down every morning, all these messages I'm getting, whether it's coming directly from intuition from above or it's like some coincidence, some synchronicity or something. I'm writing all this stuff down and then I can review it later, which I do. I review these past entries from the last week or couple of weeks and say, okay, well, did I do something with that sign or that intuition that I received 2 weeks ago and wrote down? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. Like I should do something with that. That's not just a hello, like, hey, we're here. Something to, we live in the world of action. So that's been a breakthrough for me.
No, that's powerful. And the fact that you're open to those things and you're actively writing down you're open and you're looking for those things, it's definitely a guiding force. And once you've developed your intuition and you can start cutting through the clutter, it's very freeing. You might be saying, oh, it's all coincidence or he's just whatever it is, but it's really not. That's why a lot of some of the most successful people, they'll say, oh, they just kind of have the it factor, right? What is that it factor? It's the ability to use intuition and to be able to see around the corner a little bit because you're open to hearing those messages. And the fact that you're thanking the universe for gifts. I mean, if someone gave you a gift and they didn't thank you for it, might not want to give them another one. And the ultimate gift is lessons. So you're also thanking the universe for the lessons that are coming your way. Yeah. So no, I love your routines. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. And something that you said, I want to piggyback on, you said, looking or seeing around corners. And one big lesson I got within the last year, and it keeps getting reinforced, is by more lessons that keep, knocking me on the head about this. Rather than trying to predict the future, create it. Because I get so hung up on trying to predict the future, trying to like receive prophecy or something. And that is not the way the universe is supposed to work for us. It's supposed to be manifestation, and the what you focus on is what you create, right? The law of attraction. And so if you're creating your reality, you don't have to predict it because you're programming it into your holodeck simulation.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's everything you're saying is spot on. And everyone has their own way to kind of tie this in. But I do think it all kind of starts with journaling and reflecting. And you've probably been journaling for a long time and you've optimized what works for you and taken bits and pieces from other people. And it's really nice once that becomes part of your life, for sure. It helps in business and in relationships, for sure.
Yeah. Well, the summary of the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius is, I think, a really easy, good starting point for our listener who's not like really deep in this stuff. It's like $3. It's narrated by Robin Homer, and on Audible, 33 minutes long. Certainly, that's a reasonable amount of time. You can afford that time, instead of listening to some random podcast episode like this one.
Yeah. No, and it's free on YouTube.
Okay.
There's this guy with this like semi-English accent that just does a really great job.
Okay, I'll get that. Either I'll find that on my own, or if I don't find it easily, I'll get the link from you and I'll include that in the show notes for this episode.
Yeah, I would say kind of like looking back on my life, Think and Grow Rich was the first book that I read that I basically just fully adopted into my psyche. And I still read that once a year. And then also Finding Stoicism further down the line. Like those were two like big mental mile markers. Think and Grow Rich teaches you how to create your own reality and just bring into existence what you want and kind of a formula for that. And then Stoicism helps you with the actual tactical aspects of doing those things. I wish I'd found them closer together, but that, you know, everything, the time was right for me. So those are two really big important books there for sure.
Yeah, Napoleon Hill wrote that like 100 years ago or something, right?
1930-ish.
So 90 years ago. And speaking of about 100 years ago, one of my favorite books about kind of this illusory world and how to program your own holodeck matrix is The Game of Life and How to Play It. It's by Florence Scovel Shinn, and it was written in the 1920s. And she was just so ahead of her time. Incredible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, love that book.
A female author back then. That's awesome. Definitely going to dive into that.
Yeah, and there is a YouTube audio version of that on Master Key Society's YouTube channel, which is really good.
Oh yeah, yeah. And in the show notes, when I give you guys my free course, I also have my 12-month financial and personal planner, and it is basically Stoicism, Think and Grow Rich, habits. It's kind of everything that we've talked about in a PDF that you print out and you write in your goals, and then you can kind of do your daily stuff from there. But I've been obsessively working on this for a while, because part of what we do with our charity is we help people that are financially down turn their lives around. So I need to know certain things about people. I need to figure out what their goals are and stuff like that. So we're using this I use it personally. My closest friends use it as well. And then we're using it with other people to try to help get some of these habits that we're talking about into something tactical every day that equals spendable cash, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And thank you for that. We'll definitely include that in the show notes, and I'm sure that's going to be awesome for people. You know, one thing that you said I want to circle back on, I think is just so important. You did something remarkable when you decided, I'm going to sign up for the Ironman, and you didn't even know how you were going to complete it. You didn't even know how to swim that kind of distance. That's what I learned is called a forcing function. I learned this from Aaron Ross. He was a guest on this podcast, and he wrote the book From Impossible to Inevitable. Phenomenal book, phenomenal guy and thinker and yeah, humanist. He's awesome. And this forcing function, like, okay, I'm not just going to go sign up for the gym to lose weight or to get fit. I'm going to announce to all my friends and family and fans and everything on social media that I'm doing this, right? That's a forcing function. You didn't just like sign up for the gym or something. You signed up for the Ironman. And I think that was a forcing function. And if you need to break a habit or pivot or do something really big, I think a forcing function is one of the best ways to interrupt that old pattern and replace it with something new.
Yeah, no, thanks for underlining that. And I get really weird when I hear people say, "Oh, don't tell people what you're going to do, show them." Yeah, no, I get that. And that could work for some people. And there's all different personality types out there. But social accountability is a really big driving factor for me personally. And if I tell 10 people I signed up for the Ironman, I know I'm going to see them again. And they're going to say, "How's the Ironman training going?" And if I have to say I quit and make up some lame excuse, or maybe a real excuse, right? Whatever it is. Yeah, it's an extra way to stay motivated, having social accountability and then having a community of people that if you don't show up, they say, "Hey, Ross, where the hell were you yesterday? We did, 100 miles on the bike. You said you were going to be there." And when I rode BMX, if I didn't show up to the skate park on the weekend, I'd go to school and they'd be like, "Oh, what's up, poser?" That was like a big diss back in the day. It's, you missed out, this, that, and whatever. So actually, one thing that I did very, very early on that it took me a decade to realize how powerful it is. Before I had done my first real estate deal, I just, I don't know if this is, I'm not quite sure where this falls in the mental psyche here, but I said, you know what? I'm going to be a real estate millionaire. I know I'm going to do it. People are going to want to know how. So I'm just going to write it down. So I started to write a book on how to become a real estate millionaire before I had done my first deal. It's called Real Estate Investing in Your 20s. That's part of what I'll give you. I'll give you that book. But it's the only real estate book I've ever seen that's written during the journey rather than after.
That's awesome. And I could just totally hear these guys giving you a hard time in high school. Poser, poser, while you're writing how to become a real estate millionaire.
It wasn't until college. Yeah, it wasn't until after I broke my
Okay.
leg. I'm like, I'm going to do real estate. There's no turning back. But to put myself in the mind frame
Mhm.
that I am going to do this, I'm going to write it down. And then it just goes with that writing it down. I mean, that I remember that icon stayed on my desktop for years and years and years. If you're where you are, you can write a book on how to go from being a broke truck driver to financially free in 2 years. Like you can start writing that book. And I wrote Real Estate Investing in Your 20s, right? I was in my 20s, wanted to be a real estate investor. Didn't do the 30s or the 40s. I did write a few other books, but probably should have kept that theme going. Anyway, but it was a really powerful mental exercise on putting myself in the future. Kind of like when you write yourself the check, like, I'm going to cash $1 million check on this date. It's a fun exercise, but to write the book was something else. And funny story, not funny, but writing that book was the main reason that I started Connected Investors. I was writing this book and I'm like, I wish I can connect with other investors that were like 20 years old, but there wasn't a way to do that. I'm like, what if there was a social network? And that's what started that process, right? So it's easy to look back and see where the dots were, but just moving forward, holding yourself accountable, having that intuition to like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write it down. Like there wasn't 1% of me that didn't believe it. And that's kind of a fun place to be, but you have to be able to convince yourself first before you can convince anyone else. Right.
Yeah. And there's this great book that I'm thinking there's no coincidences. I just happened to be thinking of this book, and then I look down, and when I was searching on Audible to find that summary about Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, the first book that shows up is the same book that I was thinking I probably should bring this up. Of course, no coincidences. Everything's a sign, right? Well, it's Ben Hardy's book, Be Your Future Self Now.
I love it.
And you can communicate with that future self, and you can get input and guidance from that future version of you. You could write letters to that future self. You can receive telepathic communication from that future self, right? It's bi-directional channel. So it's a phenomenal approach and a phenomenal book, and I think everybody should be doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because in Think and Grow Rich, there's a part of it that a lot of people don't talk about. And maybe it's not even in the main book, but it's about kind of creating your own mastermind of people that aren't even alive right now. I call it the mental mastermind. And it's a meditation practice. But I did that for years, and my future self was in that mastermind, right? Helping me stay accountable. I just remember it was like, Ross, even when I was working my hardest, I just had my daughter, and I would take off one day a week, every week, no matter what, just to spend time with my daughter. And my future self was like, Ross, when you are 70 years old, you will literally you'll take a loan out plus all of your money to have one day with your 5-year-old daughter, and your wife at that stage in your career. So I would always find the time. Now I might make it up and work until 3 a.m. Yeah, just having that time and having all those videos was quite a gift, which came from the exact exercise you're talking about.
That is so cool. And that feels perhaps for some of our listeners to be pretty out there. to imagine you could have somebody who is like, say, a legend who passed away, like Steve Jobs or whatever, on your own personal mastermind and your future self as well, and so forth. And you're collaborating and brainstorming with this group of beings who are no longer incarnate, or or if it's your future self, it's not in this reality that this being is incarnated. It's like you just have now or you have not now, and you're communicating with folks in the not now, and that might sound really fantastical to some of our listeners, but others would be like, that's a great idea, and I'm going to give that a go. I'm down for that.
It's a fun thought exercise, right? But what I did is the people that were in my mastermind, I mean, I read their biographies, my mental mastermind, like I studied them. It wasn't just someone that I thought was cool, because you have to be able to have conversations, not just between you and the person, but between the person and the other person, right? I would envision, someone showing up a little bit late and just try to get in the actual mind frame of sitting down with these individuals, and they'd give me a hard time. It wasn't all good. It was some tough love, but it's kind of like a WWJD thing on steroids with multiple people. And it's just a really good thought exercise and helps. You're getting out of your own way, right? You're out of your own ruts, your own thought patterns, and you're coming at a problem from a different direction on someone who seems like they can touch their tire to the ceiling, right? Because you know the answers, right? Like that's all these are doing. Like you have the answers inside you somewhere, and these are just helping you kind of pull them out and get out of your own way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I know we're out of time, but what a whole lot of unconventional wisdom and not just whiz bang marketing tactics using Chat GPT, which everybody else is doing. And this is the stuff that really moves the needle. This is why we're here, is to have breakthroughs of these sorts of kinds, not in hacking some sort of funnel or using some AI tool. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, this was great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you, listener. Thank you for being open-minded enough to stick around to the end and really take this stuff on board. So we'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.